Good day. Welcome to another lesson on our Entrepreneurship Master Program. Today we're looking at the skills program, how to design a learning organization. So with this program, we're looking at the training and learning development within an organization. And why is this module important? This skills program is very important, most especially for developing and emerging small and medium enterprises, because one, they don't have most of the time they don't have the necessary expertise and experience as they enter a specific market. You find that small businesses or SMMEs are founded by entrepreneurs or business people who have experience from the sector, but not as entrepreneurs. So most of the time you find that entrepreneurs, yes, they have the experience in that space and they establish an organization, but running your own organization and being an employee in the same sector, there are two different things. Yes, you'll have the knowledge about the sector, how the sector operates, and the things that needs to be done in an employment context, but you might not have the experience on implementing a project in a independent entrepreneurial venture, which are two different things. Because if you are in a working environment, you have support system. You have maybe your IT department if the IT is not working. You have, your printing department if the printer is not working. If you have anything issues with your payroll, you have your HR department. If there are problems with finance, you have your finance department. You might have experience on implementing projects, but because you had all this support system, it makes it different when you are in an entrepreneurial venture, because there you will not have the luxury of support that you get in your employment environment. So operating in an entrepreneurial environment requires you to be able to learn, to be able to develop skills as quick as possible, and to also to be able to leverage any other opportunities that you can get from outside to bring in the skills internally, so that you will have people to support you when you are executing your objectives. So what we're going to look at in terms of this skills program, we're going to look at how you basically design the outcome-based learning within your organization, because you need skills and you might not have all the skills, and you need to develop certain skills for yourself and for your employees. And most of the time you find that you are all new in the space of entrepreneurship. And remember, entrepreneurship as well, it's a lonely journey, because you don't have the support that I just mentioned. And sometimes you might not have been in the position of making decisions, like a position of a CEO. So if you start a project or a new venture, you will be acting as a CEO. And most people who start businesses were not CEOs, because if you were a CEO, then even this program is not for you. So this program is designed for those emerging entrepreneurs who have passion, have drive, but they might not have all the skills that are required to build a sustainable venture. So the first module that you're going to look at is outcome. How do you design an outcome-based learning? So, but the focus is not necessarily on you designing the learning material, because sometimes designing a learning program requires development of materials and all that. But as an entrepreneur, if you are not in the training space, it's not within your expertise to be designing learning materials. That you leave it to the expert. What we're going to look at is for you to design the learning programs that are required in your business, the relevant ones. And then you'll go out to source maybe the training providers or whatever that may be. You might identify the trainings or the seminars or the developmental opportunities that might be out there to meet the needs of your organization. So, and now, okay, the question is, why should you even consider designing a learning program for your organization? As I said, that sometimes when you come into a business as an entrepreneur, you don't have all the skills. So the first thing that you need to do when it comes to building a learning organization is to do what we call skills audit. A skills audit is a process where you look at your business, you look at the industry, and you look at where the economy is, right? And you will have a vision where you want to be, right? And with that vision in mind, you look at the skills that are required in the context of your industry. You look at the skills that are required to achieve the vision that you want to achieve as an organization, right? So you're going to look at the skills that you have, the skills that are required by your industry, the skills that are required for you to achieve your vision. And once you look at your skills that you have and the skills that are required by the industry and the skills that are required to achieve your vision, then you compare the skills that you have with the skills that are required. And there'll be differences. You'll have some skills, some you might not have. And then after that, you're going to have the residual skills that are needed that you don't have. That's how you conduct your skills audit. That's the first thing that you need to do. And you need to do this thing as early as possible so that even when you are building, you don't get surprised by certain things that might be required or certain skills that might be required along the way. So you need to plan your skills programs or the designing the outcome-based training programs from the beginning of setting up your organization, so that you know which skills you have and which skills you don't have that you might have to acquire. So, because this is going to help you to be conscious of the skills that you need to acquire. Because sometimes if you are not conscious about certain things, you will see them and they will not register because you never thought about them. And you might be passed by opportunities because you never really thought about the skills that you need. There might be, in your earlier stage of your operation, there might be different training opportunities that you come across, but because you never thought about the skills that you need, you might miss them or you might think they are not relevant. And only to realize later when you are struggling to achieve certain things and you realize that, oh, I needed this skill, I should maybe enroll for this course and I should do this. But if you do it up front, you will be able to know. And once you know, when you come across training opportunities, you will know to say, this seems like it's a training program that I need. If the gap require training, formal training, there might be other skills that they don't necessarily require formal training. It might be an issue of maybe you require mentorship or you require on-the-job training. So as you identify the skills, you will be able to ascertain this is the skill that maybe we can learn internally or we can learn by doing. Or this is the skill that we might have maybe to attend a formal training program. Or it's a skill that we can easily self-study to an internet or whatever it is. So by identifying the skills gap within the organization, because the difference between the skills that you have and the skills that are required in the industry or for you to achieve the goals, it is called the skills gap within the organization. So each and every organization must do its skills audit and identify the skills gap. Then once you have identified the skills gap, one, as I said, that will make you conscious of the skills that you need for you to be sustainable, for you to be successful in that venture. And once you identified the skills that you need to be successful and you are conscious, there are a lot of training opportunities out there. But most entrepreneurs miss those opportunities because they're not conscious about their organization and developing a learning organization. So for you as an entrepreneur, it will be very, very positive, and it will contribute to the sustainability of your organization if you identify your skills gap as early as possible. As soon as you start your business, you need to look at your skills gap to see where you are and where you're supposed to be, so that you can design your training plan. Okay, so now designing your outcome-based learning programs is basically your training plan. Okay, so and in designing your training plan, okay, the initial process, you might not need a training consultant, but you can get a training consultant to come help you identify the skills, prepare your skills plan, and submit your skills plan to the relevant SETA. But we're going to go through it so that you understand what you might have to do for you to develop your organization to become a learning organization. So now, before we go into the details on how you actually identify the skills and how do you implement the training program, or how do you design them, let's just touch on why the organization should be a learning organization first, so that we deal with the why. Why should you do it? And then I just explain what it is and what is designing an outcome-based learning, just high level. And then let me just give you the why. And then we're going to come to the how now. So why should you even care that your organization is a learning organization? Remember, entrepreneurship, you're operating in an ever-changing environment, right? So the skills that you were relevant in your sector 10 years ago might not be relevant today, because there's an advancement in technology, right? There are changes in policies in terms of the certain things how certain things needs to be done. So like we are no more now globally, industries are moving to a more green technology. They want to be zero carbon footprint or something like that. So they want all the industries are trying to be green, and it's easier for organizations that are going green to be funded and to be accepted in industries, because they are pro sustainability. Unlike the organizations that are not pro sustainability, or they're not in a green space, or they're not trying to reduce their carbon footprint. So now that's one thing to say. The industry is changing. So when you look at, or you look at your operation, you must also look at, call it environmental friendliness. How can you do things in an improved way compared to how they were done before? So the landscape is changing in that sense, to say certain things, certain technologies that you might have experience with or experience on, they might be irrelevant, or they might be outdated, because the second thing is technology. The technology is moving. Almost all sectors are impacted by technology, because things are moving at fast pace, because the computers are replacing people. We have robots, we have IA, artificial AI, artificial intelligence things that have been developed out there that one make it more efficient and make it easier for organizations to do certain things. And even the computers or machinery, they become a little bit more advanced. So as the technology improves or evolves, you as an organization, you should also evolve or move with the technology. And for you to move with the development in your industry, you need to be a learning organization. You should be able to learn from one. A learning organization is not only a studying organization as such where they are doing formal courses. It also means that when you're doing things, you learn from them, you come with new strategies, and you develop, you identify the skills gap within your organization, and you work on those skills gap to make sure that you improve on them, because they are your weaknesses. So you need to focus on improving your weaknesses so that you can be more competitive. So the organizations that are learning organizations, they become more and more competitive, and they tend to accept the changes in their industry. You remember now we have what you call it Netflix. Remember, we didn't have Netflix previously, and we had what Blockbuster, where you can go rent DVDs and then you come watch your movie and you return the DVDs and all that. Then that industry changed, and Blockbuster, it was not a learning organization. They kept the old thinking. As the technology was evolving, they didn't evolve with technology. Okay. And now, with your Netflix and your online stuff that we have, then they failed because they were not a learning organization, right? And also it also includes different industries, like your music industry. They used to print CDs, right? And organizations that were printing CDs, they out of business now because now we are in live streaming and all those things. We have Kodak. It used to be a big camera company selling photos and printing photos and all that. And they also failed because the technology changed. We moved into cameras where we have cameras in our hands. So people didn't need the shops to go print there or to take pictures and go clean and all that, because now things are being shared electronically. So they also didn't move with the times. That's where now you can see the failure of organizations that are not learning organizations. So to be a learning organization is for your business to identify trends or development in your industry and find development and improvement within the organization and take the necessary steps for you to improve or to learn from the developments. And as an organization, as you make mistakes or as you develop product and projects, you're gonna make mistakes. There will be some learnings that needs to happen. For learning, organization is able to capture the experience that they learned from maybe failed project or not failed, even successful project. They're able to capture the learnings from the project so that it can filter through the organization. So it makes it easier for organization to adapt. It makes it easier for organization to compete. It makes it easier for an organization to be more efficient because they learn. One, they learn from internal processes. They make sure that they capture the learnings, the way the organization is structured. It makes it easier to share knowledge. So there is a knowledge management component within the organization so that whoever has experience in certain things is able to teach others or translate it to make it an organizational knowledge rather than an individual knowledge. So with a learning organization, you must be an organization that as it learn the experience and gain knowledge, they are able to convert it from individuals to corporate. And if there are learning opportunities, they are open to learning. They are open to doing things differently. They are willing to take risk and take maybe pilot projects so that they can learn from those pilot projects. So a learning organization is always open to doing things differently. And actually it comes into the case study that we looked at. Like you looked at your Auckland A's from like Moneyball, from the movie Moneyball or the book Moneyball, where the Auckland A's was a small team that couldn't compete with other teams within the league because they didn't have the budget. So what they did, they found an innovative way to compete by buying players that are being ignored by the league or by big players. So they found a system that was developed by Billy James, and then they adopted that. Scout for players that are cheap and the industry is not seeing those players. So that is a learning organization where it finds different methods of doing things. Now, okay, but to learn more about the Auckland A's, we can go to our case study movies. Then there we explain it more in detail to say how the Auckland A's became a learning organization. But what they did is everyone was doing things in a certain way. And their manager, Billy Bean, saw an opportunity or met a young man who explained this maths that Bill James was using. Then, because he was open to learning, he was open to doing things differently, then he hired this young man. And this young man, with Billy, they changed how basketball was conducting recruitment of players or buying of players. And also, if you look at another case study that we're using, the McDonald's story, you can see how the McDonald's brothers built McDonald's to what it is today, because they were a learning organization from the beginning. You can see that from how they started their burger stand in Arcadia, and they realized that that environment is not working for them because the market is not big enough. And they learned that quickly, and they moved to San Bernardino. And when they got there, they performed initially, but they reached a peak. And they saw that they were not growing. And they looked at options to say, what can we do to improve our operations? What can you do to increase our revenue? Then they went and redesigned the store to be more efficient, and they removed a lot of products from their menu. That's a learning organization, because what you do as a learning organization, as you do business, you look at the data that the customers are providing you. And from that data, you look at what can you do to improve your operations and continuously innovating. And you can see with the McDonald's brothers, they went and innovated and custom designed their kitchen, and they developed the new concept in fast food, which previously there were drive-ins where you drive in with your car, you sit in the car, the waiter comes, they take your order, and they bring it once the order is ready. But with the McDonald's brothers, you park your car and then you come into the shop, you buy and you go. Or the drive-through where you don't have to park. You don't park, but you drive and you get your food and you continue with your journey. They innovated because they were a learning organization. They used the data from customers to improve the operation. So, and then even with Ray, you continued with being a learning organization. As the organization grew, as McDonald's grew, then what they did is they started adding few products to the menu. But these products were not mainly developed by the McDonald's as a corporate, but they were developed mainly by franchisees. So they allowed franchisees to pilot certain things, and then they will incorporate them in the menu. And some things they didn't work, some worked. So that's how the menu of McDonald's evolved from from just being burger, chips, and drinks to what it is today. Because it was through learning and development. They continuously developed their menus based on the customer's response. And also they were listening to their franchisees, because their franchisees in certain areas, they will develop certain products and present them to McDonald's, and McDonald's maybe will approve for pilot, and they pilot them so that they can learn from the data that the customers are giving them. And from the data or from the feedback, so based on the feedback from the customers, then they'll decide if they're continuing with that product or not. That's how you build a learning organization. It's not only about training, attending courses and all that. It's about learning from experience, learning from the data that you are collecting from your customers. So now if you look at McDonald's, and then McDonald's but went a little bit further by even establishing a hamburger university, so that learning can be formalized, where they train employees on how the McDonald's system works. And in addition, they were having the classes where new things can be developed. So they basically developed what we can call a research and development department. Because learning organizations, they will have, okay, but it's mainly corporates. They'll have a research and development department, so that they continuously develop new products. They continuously test new product or new methods of doing things. And sometimes it's difficult for a small business to have a research and development department, because you are focused on servicing the customers, and you don't have excess cash for you to be running a research and development department. That is not going to give you immediate revenue. Because remember, research and development department is a department that is looking at a new way of doing things, and sometimes it might take them years to come up with a winner, but you need to fund that department. So you might not afford it as a small business, but if you can afford it, you need to make sure that you establish a research and development department, so that you can continuously develop new systems, new method of doing things. You must always allow your employees to be innovative, so that you can develop that culture, that you develop a learning organization. And you might end up having a formal program, or a formal skills plan that you're going to implement as an organization. So designing an outcome-based learning program is not necessarily writing a material that you're going to formally train employees. It's also based on the learnings that you do. How are you managing the knowledge within the organization? So you need to develop frameworks to harvest the information from your employees, or to make sure that you store all the information that your organization is being exposed to, so that you can use it to improve your customer service. You can use it to improve your product. You can use the information to be more competitive. That's what a learning organization is. And why should you do it? A learning organizations are winning organizations. They progress, they develop, they learn how to do new things. As a result, they'll become successful. They have a better chance of surviving compared to the organizations that are not learning. Remember, depending on the research that you read, about 70% of all startups or all small businesses fail. And you need to do everything that you can do in your powers to make sure that you don't become the statistics. And one of the things that you need to do is to make sure that you are implementing a proper training and development strategy. And by developing a proper learning and development strategy, you need to know your skills gap, the skills that are missing within your organization. Then from the skills that are missing from the organization. Now we're getting into the how you're going to implement this. So now I've just highlighted that why you should be a learning organization, and then I explained to what it is to design a learning outcome-based learning program. And then now we're going to look into the how part. All right. To design your outcome-based learning program, meaning your learning programs that you design or you implement within your organization must be outcome-based. They must not be theoretical, because it's not going to help you to learn theory. They must be, yes, not necessarily not going to help you. Still have to learn theory, but the focus and the measurement of the success of a program must be based on the outcomes. That's what outcome-based learning programs mean. To assess if the program was successful, you must be looking at the outcomes, not the output. Because in the old setting, when organizations were designing their learning programs, it was more on the output. How many hours you spend on training? How many lessons have you attended? Did you miss the classes and all that? That is output. But the outcomes are the results. To say, if you are implementing a learning intervention, if you are implementing maybe a training program, what do you want the outcomes to be? And outcomes should be something that is tangible, that is measurable. How are you going to measure the success of a program? Because if you're designing something, if you are implementing a process, or if you're implementing a strategy, there must be an outcome that you are expecting. So designing a outcome-based program means your programs within the organization must be the outcome-based. They must be based on the result that you want to achieve. So as I said, that you might have a research and development department. It's one of the part of designing an outcome-based learning program. Because in research and development, your researchers and developers will be learning how to do certain things, what not to do, and all that. So it becomes a learning program on its own. Harvesting data from your customers and developing new products, that's a learning program on its own. So when you're doing those things, they must not be haphazard. They must be intentional. They must be strategic. They must be well developed to say, how are we going to do that? How often are we going to analyze the customer data? How often are we going to discuss a new ways of doing things? That's how you design your outcome-based learning. Right? It's not only about designing the material. It's the how you're going to harvest the information. How are you going to transfer that information to other employees? And what are the outcomes that you're looking for? We're not only talking about, we're going to talk about the formal training processes and how you can design your learning outcomes. But the main one that you need to focus on as an organization, as a small and medium enterprise, as a small business, is to harvest the information that you already have, to have a formal way of harvesting that information, sharing that information. If you are one-man show, you don't have anyone to share it with, you might share it with a friend, family, or mentor, because it's recommended that you need to have a mentor so that you have somebody that you can bounce your ideas with. And okay, there are many actually incubation programs where they won't take you if you are the sole founder or you're operating on your own, because it's one of those things that you will not have a support structure, you will not have a learning partner. Where you are weak, they might be strong. Where you are strong, they might be weak, and you can't develop quick enough to move your business forward. Because when you lose motivation, if you are alone, when you lose motivation, that means everything stops. But if you are 2-3 founders, you are able to pick each other up whenever one is slacking. So with a learning organization, it becomes important to analyze your skills. As I said, you look at the skills that are required by your sector and for you to achieve your goals. You look at the skill sets that you have, and the difference will be your skills gap. Then you take your skills gap then you start developing your training plan. A training plan meaning you look at the skills that you don't have or the gaps that you have, and you decide if the program will be a formal program, will be a mentorship program, or it will be a practical training. So you can decide in the method or self-study. For that matter, you can even run a self-study program. So you need to identify your skills gap. You need to identify the method of training. Then you look at, once you have identified the method of training, then you look at how you're going to do it. Do you have material out there that will meet the outcomes that you're looking for? Right. If it means approaching an accredited, let's say you need an accredited training for you to have that competency, for you to mitigate that skills gap, then you need to approach the training institutions that are offering that course and see if they will be able to facilitate that course for you. If it requires on-the-job training, you need to develop a mentorship program to say, for us to learn this skill or to have the organization embedded with such a certain skill, you need to develop a mentorship program, identify when things need to be done, by what are the outcomes that you're looking for. Right. If as well as self-study, you need to find a way to know what to study. Recommend different programs that can be used to study the challenges or the gap, to close the gap that you have identified. Right. If it's practical, then you can run simulations and all those things to make sure that practically your employees or the team or the organization is learning from the practical activities that are there. So that is now the more formal designing of your skills, your outcome-based skills program or outcome-based skills learning or learning programs. So you need to look at your weaknesses and identify what you need for you to improve on those weaknesses. Because without improving on the weaknesses, you'll continue to be weak, and that now it will make you less competitive compared to a learning organization that is continuously developing new ways of doing things, and they have formalized that. And okay, the other thing that I need to get into when it comes to developing or designing an outcome-based program or outcome-based learning program, you need to take a practical view of developing such program, right? There is a 70-20-30 rule, right? Which it says, like, for organizations that are, let's say for a learning organization, because remember, you are not a university, or the people that are within the organization, they are not necessarily students, right? So you need to make sure that you allocate their learning timetables or our learning schedule to meet the organizational need, right? So whenever you're deciding the types of programs that you're going to implement, be it in research and development, be it a formal training, be it collection of data from customers so that you can improve on the service, you look at what they call the 70-20 rule, meaning the organization or the employees must learn 70% on the job. So you mustn't make your training programs theoretical. 7% must be on the job, and 20% must be on the team engagement, where different teams are engaging with each other in terms of trying to find the solution, which it builds team spirit and togetherness within the team as they are learning together. Because without engagement, you might not be exposed to certain things and how other employees are not exposed to the knowledge of other employees or other team members. So that's with that 20, you harvest information from your team members to make sure that you are managing the the knowledge within the organization, so that even if you lose one team member, you'll know that they have shared their knowledge with other team members. So, and then the 10% is on attending the courses and whatever. So that's class time or session time, where you are physically attending, or not physically, but you are formally attending training programs and all that. So you mustn't have training programs that you spend 70% in the classroom, 20% engaging with maybe classmate or teammate, and then 10% on the practical, on the job. It's the other way around. So like for a university student, they spend 70% on attending classes, about 20% on team discussions and all those things, and 10% on practical experience or practical exposure. Because if it is even 10%, but because it is 10%, even though they are not physically going out to be employees, but the engagement, the lectures and all that, they generally provide practical examples so that you can comprehend in terms of what's happening in practice. So when you're designing your training programs or your skills programs, you need to make sure that one, it's the critical one, is the outcomes that you want to achieve. What do you want to, after completion of this program? It might be research and development. It might be the collection of data and analysis of data from the customers so that you can maybe adjust your product. It might be a formal learning. But the most important thing is, what do you want to achieve? The outcomes are they are very, very important for any learning program. Not the output, not how many hours you went to class, how many hours you spent doing certain things that are related to learning. What are the outcomes? Those are the critical outcomes are very, very critical for a learning organization. Focus on the outcomes. And then once you know what you want to achieve, you'll be able to measure if your learning interventions are achieving what they're supposed to achieve. Okay. And then the other criteria that you need to use, you need to make sure, not it's recommended. It's not the law. It's recommended that 70% of the learning should be happening practically, where the person that is learning is implementing the learnings within the organization. 20% must be on the engagement, meaning the team. It might be engagement with the team, it might be engagement with the expert in that space, but you must spend 20% of your learning time that is being allocated engaging with others, with the team members, with the expert. It's very important. And then the 10% is the one that you can spend in class or attending courses and all that. So that is the structure of how you look at designing an outcome-based learning program, right? And mainly it's based on the activities of your business. Which sector are you in? What do you want to achieve? What is required by that sector that you are in? And then you look at what do you have already. Sometimes they call it a recognition of prior learning. What have you learned previously that becomes useful within your current employment or a current project? So you need to look at the relevance, the experience that you have gained from other spaces, and then you take that into account. You look at what the industry is looking for. You have your skills gap, and you decide how you're gonna close that gap. Because the intention is the skills gap must be at minimal. And if you have proper skills or you develop proper skills within the organization, then you become even more competitive out there. The chances of you doing the right things, like securing funding, securing markets, making sure that you have systems in place, making sure that your supply chain is doing what it's supposed to do, is based on the knowledge that you develop internally. And if you have those things in place, you even become more competitive. You can compete out there. You can stand your ground because you will eventually have the necessary skills and the necessary expertise for you to execute your mandate or be able to achieve your objectives. So for you to, we've spoke about the designing of the outcome-based learning, right? And obviously you need to implement it. So after you've identified your skills gap, and then you develop a training plan. So your training plan, one, will be guided by the objectives that you want to achieve. So when you develop your learning intervention, you don't develop them in a vacuum. You develop them based on the outcomes that you want to achieve. So it must be guided by the vision and the mission of the organization. Remember, I said the skills, you look at them in this way to say, this is the skills that we have. This is the skills that the industry that you are operating wants to, or you should have if you are operating in this industry. And these are the skills that are required for us to achieve our vision, mission and goals, right? So you look at your skills plan in that way to say, which skills do we have? And then you look at the industry. This industry requires this set of skills. And then for us to reach these goals, we need this type of skills. Then you take those skills, you look at what you have and the skills that are required, you do the difference and you get your skills gap. Once you have a skills gap, which is the difference between the skills that you have and the skills that are required, then you design a training plan to address the skills that you don't have and are required, right? And that you need to look at. You've looked at your vision, you looked at your goals that you wanted to achieve. So you need to be able to break down your goals to link the skills that you want to develop and the goals so that your skills plan is outcome based. So if you are running a program, if you are running a research and development, or if you are learning from internal data, they must be goal driven. What do you want to achieve with this? And what do you want to achieve with that specific skill that you want to develop? It must be linked to the organization's mission and vision. Don't to implement learning interventions that have nothing to do with one, the industry, and two, where you're going as the organization. So the vision and mission will keep you focused to make sure that you don't just implement any intervention that might be irrelevant because you can. And I told you that once you do your skills gap, you'll become conscious of the opportunities that are out there. And remember, with skills development, it doesn't mean, or not all the time, that you will have to pay for the training interventions, right? If you go back to our initial introduction to how you develop a learning organization, you'll hear that we speak about how you access the grants, how do you access learnerships so that you are able to benefit from the fund. Because truth be told, our government is putting money into training. Okay, it might not be sufficient, but they are trying. There is money into training, and it's just that small businesses are not accessing those grants because they don't understand. Two, they're not exposed. Three, they don't do their skills audit and they don't go out. Because once you do your skills audit and you know the gaps, you start actively going out to look for opportunities for you to work on those skills or to be trained on that particular gaps that you have identified. So because we are not actively building learning organization, we miss opportunities that are out there, most especially from national skills plan. Because with the national skills plan, they identify skills that needs to be developed, and they have a national skills fund that funds those those skills that they want to develop. And they fund them in a way of, one is mandatory grants that your relevant SETA will refund you for all the trainings that you conducted. And they have a discretionary grants that your SETA, okay, not necessarily your SETA, but the SETA that is providing the skill that you're looking for, it might give you that discretionary grant so that you can train your employees, or you can implement that training intervention that you have identified. And the other one is the learnerships, where the industry has learnerships out there, and you can use the learnerships. Because what learnership does, it gives you an opportunity to have an employee that you're not paying, the employee that is on stipend. So you can bring in an employee who's on learnership, is paid by the SETAs, and they come work for your organization, they contribute to development of your organization, and you are not paying them the salary because they are getting the stipend from the SETA. And the employee will not only be helping you, you will be also contributing towards upskilling our youth. You will be contributing towards giving on the youth an opportunity to have on-the-job training. So you will, in a way, be contributing towards developing our country. You have a duty, and if the opportunity like that comes, you have a duty to make sure that you answer the calling. That's on the funding of the learning interventions. It doesn't mean you have to take money from your, necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take money from your budget. We know into SMMEs, they struggle with the funding. But you have a lot of funding out there. And you have also the TFIs that are willing to fund training programs. You have your CEDA. They run regular programs. If you're a youth, you have your NYDAs, that is got training interventions. Even the funding institutions, they normally have mentorship programs for businesses that they have funded. They call it post-investment support, where they will support you, provide you the necessary training to make sure that you upskill on certain things. And it will make that process easier if you did your skills plan. You conducted your skills audit, identify skills gap, and you have your skills development plan. Even when you are applying for funding, you can include your skills development plan to say, this is what interventions that we need post-investment. To say, please assist us on this. I know, like your IDC, they say 50% becomes grant and 50% you have to pay for your post-investment intervention. I mean, that's 50% grant. And that will help you, it will help your business to improve its competency. That means you'll be more competitive by taking that type of intervention. And sometimes there are pre-investment interventions where the TFIs, they implement trainings, even if they didn't fund you, but they will implement certain trainings. As well, there are big institutions that they have to do skills development because of the BE codes. So they're doing the skills development. Okay, most of them, they don't have interest in developing entrepreneurs. Their interest is in making sure that they are compliant with our BE codes, right? But if you have a skills plan and you know the skills that you're looking for, it doesn't matter what their intentions are. You will have your own intentions. So you can take advantage, even though your intentions will not be aligned, because they will be doing training for the sake of it, or they will be implementing a training intervention for the sake of compliance. But because you have your skills plan, you know what you're looking for, then you will be able to take advantage of opportunities like that. Even though from their side, they just want to spend money training people, you will be attending training because there are specific gaps that you want to address. So before I go into how you implement, how you cascade the learning intervention down to the goals, I was saying, let me just address the funding portion, because it's always an issue when I'm interacting with entrepreneurs to say, yes, we want to attend training, we want to do this, but we don't have funding for it. And what I'm saying is, we don't always need internal funding. We have sufficient funding out there to fund skills development. You just need to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the space, but it first starts internally. Once you know what you're looking for, even when you're phoning around to engage your SETA or engage the enterprise development institution, you will know exactly the type of interventions that you're looking for. You become specific. You will end up, but sometimes I've seen institutions or small businesses that take training for the sake of training. They hear, no, there's a free training there. They go attend. Yes, it's free, and sometimes, yes, being trained, it's helpful. Knowledge is power, we know that. But remember, you have a vision, mission, you have reasons why you are in business. So you don't necessarily have to waste time attending all this training. Yes, knowledge is power, you need to gain, but you need to have your priorities straight. So you need to make sure that you are conscious, you are intentional about which trainings are you going to attend, which trainings are you not going to attend. Yes, if you have enough time, your business is doing well, you are generating revenue that you wanted to generate and you are comfortable, yes, you can attend each and every training that they are out there. All the trainings that are out there, you can attend them. But if you are still in the building phase, you prioritize. You attend the necessary trainings. You attend the necessary interventions. And those will come from the design of your skills plan. And remember, I said, those interventions, you must have the outcomes that you want to achieve. Not the output. The output is you attending the training, signing the attendance register. That's not what an entrepreneur that is building a growing or a developing or emerging business is supposed to do. You need to be laser focused on the things that you need to do, so that you can achieve your goals within a reasonable time. We know entrepreneurship is a challenge, it's a jungle out there. So, but you need to have plans in place for you to be able to navigate that jungle. You mustn't just take any direction. You might not be able to come out of that jungle. But if you have a roadmap that you know, this jungle, I'm going to start here, move here, move here, move here, then I'll arrive there. Yes, you might be lost along the way, but at least you'll be having a map to guide you to where you want to get to, which is very, very important for entrepreneurs to understand that. So even with the skills program, there must not be training programs or training interventions or the learning interventions that you implement within your organization that are not aligned to your mission, vision, and goals. There must always be that alignment. And once you align them, then you should be able to cascade them down to the responsible person. If it's a one-man show, that means they are sitting on your plate, those interventions that you have identified. The skills gap that you have identified, they must be on your plate. You need to make sure that you put in a project plan, which will indicate when are you planning to achieve certain interventions. Because without setting goals for those interventions, you might never get to doing them. And if you don't do them, then those skills gap remains. That means your organization will remain weak on those skills gap that you have identified. And you don't want weaknesses that you can easily cure. You need to remain with weaknesses that are probably difficult to cure, because it's doggy, it's dog eat dog out there. So you need to make sure that you don't have you are not carrying unnecessary weaknesses in your business. You need to make sure that you address those weaknesses in your business. And as you address the weaknesses, remember they become your strength, because the competition is not out there waiting for you to address your weaknesses whenever. If the opportunity comes, don't eat you alive. So make sure that you develop learning interventions that are relevant, that are in line with your industry, and in line with your vision and mission. And if you are not a one-man show, then you need to be able to cascade them down to the responsible individual, right? So if you have a team and you have identified a weakness, it's not always necessary for you as the entrepreneur to attend. You can send whoever that is directly involved with that activity that you identified the weakness, right? So then you send them, but as I said earlier, you need to make sure that you have a knowledge management system in place to be able to manage the knowledge that you have within the organization. You need to be able to, for those who attended the training, remember, we recommend that you need to make sure that the training interventions that you do are 70% on the job, 20% team, 10% class or contact sessions. So with that 20% of the team, whoever that is on the program, he must come or she must come and share with the team the learnings. So in a way, some organizations, they say, once you come back from training, you need to run your own session within the organization to share what you have learned. You might summarize what you have learned, but you can share with the teams, right? Okay, not obviously not the full course, but the relevant portion of the learning intervention that you attended, you come share with the team so that the team can be aware of what's happening out there. So that your team is always informed. It's always learning from each other. Because that's a learning organization. You need to put a system and culture of learning from each other. So that, one, it helps you with succession planning. You won't have issues. Okay, there will be issues if you leave, one employee leaves. Yes, they will leave a gap, you need to replace them. But if you are a learning organization, you will always have people who have knowledge of what that person was doing, and they will be able to do it while maybe you are waiting to replace that person. And remember, when you spoke in our systems and procedure skills program, we said you need to have systems in place so that if you are replacing an employee, they have systems and procedures that they know they have to follow to execute their job. It also goes with because they link the systems and procedures. You need to make sure that you train your employees on those systems and procedures to make sure that they are consistent in terms of the service, but they know who's doing what and what they're supposed to do, so that if you lose a person, you will be able to replace them the following day. And yes, I know certain sectors they require high skills, like high technical skills. Even that, then how you design organization, you must design in a way that whoever that you have employed, who is there, maybe they've got that technical skill that it's required in your sector. And you can't afford to have many of those within the organization. Make sure that they run programs. You design programs, learning programs within the organization so that they can get that information from that person. They might not have the formal training, but they must have the technical know-how. Remember, with formal training, probably 80% or 70% of what we learn in our different fields, probably only 30% becomes actually relevant. The others, remember, like if you're learning engineering, there are certain things that you're not going to apply in your life. And there are certain things that you're not going to apply in your job. So I remember seeing one star to say, you'll only apply about 30% of what you learned as a professional when you're doing a formal qualification. So what you do as a learning organization, you make sure that relevant 30%, the expert that you have, whoever the employee might be, whatever the position might be, make sure that you provide for knowledge sharing within the organization when you're designing your outcome-based learning programs. It must be based on the outcomes to say, you, Mr. Specialist, we know you have this expertise. Here's the program for you to regularly share certain information, whatever that needs to be shared, certain expertise with this team, and this is the outcomes that you want from this mentorship program of yours. Now, okay, obviously the discussion needs to be friendly and the person must be willing and all that. It must be peaceful because you don't want people doing training that they don't want to do. But if you have a good culture and you have proper systems, they will know even when you recruit them, they will know that training and development becomes one of their key responsibilities or key performance areas. So with each, even for a learning organization, even when you issue out or when you interview or when you issue out positions, learning and development becomes one of the key responsibilities of certain positions that can or supposed to share. Obviously, you can't put a learning intervention implementation on maybe, for argument's sake, a cleaning lady, because they have limited skills in terms of the relevant skills relating to your organization. Unless if you are a cleaning company, then it's different. But if you're a normal company, a cleaning lady skills are not critical to your mission. Obviously, you need to operate from a clean building or a clean offices, but they are not directly linked to your mission, vision, and goals. So it needs to, learning and development needs to go into your culture. It must be embedded so deep into the company culture that a person cannot separate it to say, no, but that one is more training than that. They must feel that it is their duty to train other people skills that they might not have. That's how you build a learning organization. And then that is how you design a learning interventions based on the outcomes that you want to achieve. And those outcomes of the learning interventions must be flowing from your mission and vision and goals. It must be flowing from your industry standards or industry requirements. So for you to design a learning program, an outcome-based learning program, I must stress the outcome part, because it's not output. There are many organizations out there, large government institutions, that are doing trainings for output rather than the outcomes. And remember, outcome-based learning is coming, it's not new anymore, but they continuously call it new, but it's not new. I mean, it's I think it's 30 years old now. But when you look at the material, when you look at the literatures, they call it new, because you have the old ABET, which was more on the output rather than the outcome. It was about the teachers rather than the learners. It was about if a student can memorize the answers versus if the students can apply the knowledge in the outcome based. So in the old ABET, what was measured was, can you regurgitate what you have learned? And in the outcome based, the question is, can you apply what you have learned? It's based on the outcomes. So that's the main difference between the old ABET and the new outcome-based learning. So you need to know the difference. You need to make sure that when you implement a training intervention, it's based on the outcomes that you want to achieve, rather than if the employee can regurgitate what they have learned. And as I said, the main thing is you are in business to make money. And for you to make money, you need to make sure that you are efficient, you are competitive. And for you to be efficient and competitive, you need a skilled team. You need a learning team. For you to be competitive, you need to embrace new things that are coming into your space. You need to be able to implement new strategies. You need to be able to adapt to the new reality that you might be facing. And that is the new training, learning, and development. You need to have proper policies that will encourage your organization to be a learning organization. That is the lesson for today, and I thank you.